Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Into the Overhead. I'm the host, Dene for today, and I'm here with my buddy, Josh Underwood. How you doing, Josh?
I'm good, man. I'm just sitting around in this room talking to you on the internet at 6 o'clock.
Well, it's been for probably a lot more time than we needed to today, but
yeah. Oh, my God, yeah.
Planning and preparation definitely makes for a better episode, I believe.
Yep, planning to wing it. That's the way I like to do things in life.
I will agree that there is some winging it involved here, without a doubt.
Of course, for sure.
So anyway, let's get right into it. I wanted to chat with you today. I have often had students ask me, hey, what do you think my next class should be? Or what training should I get next? And I personally feel that it definitely has a lot to do with geographic location of where the diver is diving. But what do you think? You're in Florida now. You've been in Virginia. You've been probably in some other states.
Yeah,
What's
so
your feeling?
Definitely geographically matters a lot, because if you're in a landlocked state with no giant lakes, you're probably not going to say, hey, I want to become a wreck diver next, right? But if you're privileged enough to live in a state like Florida, where we have everything pretty much except mine diving, but we've got cave diving, we have wreck diving, we've got spring diving, ocean diving, shore entry diving, charter diving. We've got everything.
Shallow reefs.
Yep. Shallow reefs, deep ocean walls, all kinds of stuff. But, for me, I am a recreational only instructor. I don't teach any technical courses yet. So I'm a little bit more limited into the things that I can recommend. But the first question I always ask is, where do you see yourself heading? And what type of classes do you see yourself taking in the future? So, for example, if somebody says they're for sure going to do cave, but they're open water now, then I would say, well, hey, there's a thing called recreational side mount. That's a thing, right? So, maybe you want to take your side mount class and start getting adjusted to that now. Now, I get it. Okay, recreational side mount is a huge controversy, and there are a lot of people that say side mount is a specific tool that's only for people that are squeezing into 8-inch tall holes in cave. And if you're not doing that, you shouldn't be side mounting. But I don't buy it. I like side mount. I like being a pontoon boat. That's how I feel when I'm in side mount. As I'm a pontoon boat. I like it. But so
skipping across the top of the water.
I love it. I do. So, so side mount's a thing that I like to talk about. Of course, that's a specialty. So, normally nitrox is probably the first class you would take after your open water certification. And then, of course, advanced. And I think every single diver on the planet, whether you're going to become a technical diver, CCR diver, whatever, should take rescue. That's just my opinion. Rescue's probably the most important class that you can take as a diver that doesn't necessarily translate to you, but it translates to everybody else, although self-rescue is the thing, but you get the point.
I agree. Rescue is super important. I also agree with you that side mount is not, I personally don't believe in recreational and technical side mount. There's side mount, whether you do it recreationally or technically, that's entirely up to you and the type of diving that you're doing. It's just I don't think it's a category. It's more just a style. You like back mount or you like side mount, and as we mentioned on a previous episode, you used to dive the chapter, which is chest mount. So it all depends on personal preference.
I haven't tried chest mount.
Well, I've seen some divers. I dive side mount almost exclusively. I'd probably say 90 to 95% of the time. I just find it way more comfortable. You can swim this way, 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 any rotation on the clock. And it's just so much easier as opposed to putting on back mount, where as soon as you get too far over, those tanks just want to flip you over.
So that the other percentage of when you're doing back mount, is that single tank or is that actually in doubles?
A little bit of both.
What? A little bit. So, because I know you're a primary side mount diver, just like me. Under what circumstances would you be like, I think I need to be in back mount doubles for this? Okay,
so just like you mentioned before, where a lot of people think side mount is a tool just to go through small little openings, I personally think that side mount is a much better tool almost all the time. The only time I would prefer back mount is if I'm boat diving in seas that are bigger than 3 feet, maybe 2.5 feet. depending on the swells and the timing and everything. Boats rocking back and forth with side mount tanks clanging around.
Right.
It's a real quick way to get yourself on the captain's boat is full list.
And I've heard that a lot of boats won't actually take side mount divers. I don't ocean dive myself, but I've heard that's a thing. I wonder why that is.
Just for that reason, because and I think it's starting to change quite a bit, but for the past 5 years anyway, where it's been becoming fairly mainstream, there's so many people that are trying to just home grow their own side mount setup and skills instead of taking a proper side mount class. And then I've dealt with it. I've seen people do it. Every single dive, they're changing 1 or 2 or 3 things, trying to make it better. But my personal opinion, if you're changing anything on side mount, it should be one thing at a time. So if it gets better or worse, you know exactly what caused it, not, hey, well, which one was it?
For sure.
But
it's been me before.
What's that?
That's been me before, changing, moving a D-ring and moving my whirring gear and adjusting bungee, and then it's all kind of jack up the next dive anyway, and I just don't know why. It's frustrating.
Maybe someday we can get you into a proper side mount class. What do you think?
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the captains are just, they don't want their boats beat up. They don't want their boats abused, and if people don't know how to properly dive side mount on a boat, that's exactly what's going to happen.
That's fair, but I got to say there's just something magical about dropping your tanks on a trail line or in the water if it's a spring and you're walking around with just a harness on and you're not a care in the world. You hop in, clip your tanks on and go. I love it. It's the best.
I agree 100%. It's great for not only just comfort in the water, but side mount is used by a lot of people who have some type of mobility issues. They can't reach those valves behind them from diving doubles anymore. Side mount, just reach down your valves right here.
I can't reach some of my doubles because of these big guns. That's my issue. So
you mean those little pew-pews?
Little squirt guns.
There you go.
Whatever, man.
So what's next? After someone takes, the basic that almost all divers take, the, night rec, navigation, nitrox, and rescue.
Well, you kind of have to make a decision at that point. Are you going to become a professional diver? And by professional, I mean a dive professional, meaning you do it in an employee or employment capacity, or are you going to focus solely on, finding a specific tech set? Or the third option, of course, is just to stay a recreational diver forever. But if you're going to go to be a professional, then you've got to take your dive master course and do your internship and all that, depending on where you go, and then maybe assistant instructor and maybe instructor. One thing I do find interesting about the term dive professional is it's strange to me, because when I initially heard dive professional, I was like professional diver, somebody who's really good at diving. But today, dive professional or professional diver just means someone who has a specific certification to teach or assist in teaching diving.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, it's either decide that you're going to go pro, or you decide that you're going to go tech, or you decide that you're happy on 30-foot reefs, which I'm sure you see a lot of it. I see a lot of students that they don't even want to take advanced because they're going to do 20 to 30-foot reef dives in the Keys
twice a year.
Yep. And that's it. Yep.
The holiday divers, without a doubt.
More power to you, man.
Blue water holiday divers.
Own their own gear. They'll rent a mask. They don't care, and that's fine.
So let me ask you this next question then. Leading into that, how many dives do you think someone should have before they get into dive guide or dive master and work towards helping other people? Because I'll admit it, I'm guilty of it myself. I got into being a dive guide. Now I look back long before I should have, because I wasn't even a really good diver myself.
Well, I think I don't actually know what the standard is off the top of my head to become a dive master. For instructor, I know it's 100 dives, and I think 100 dives is a pretty good number. Unfortunately, I think we can agree that the number of dives that you've done doesn't necessarily determine how good of a diver you are,
or your experience.
You could be a good diver after 15, 20 dives if you've got diversity there and you really work on the skills, and you could be a better diver than someone who's got 100 20-foot reef dives in the Keys, doing them, a couple of times a month or whatever. So I don't think it's cost effective or standardizable. I don't think that's a word, standardizable. I don't think you can really standardize having an instructor evaluate whether someone is ready to become a dive guide or dive master, which is probably why they do it specifically by the number of dives and not, again, by an individual evaluation. But I think that would be a better way to go about it if it was possible.
Gotcha.
So no specific number of dives to become a dive professional is what I'm saying.
Cool. So if someone had 150 dives, you think they're ready for being an instructor, or you think they're ready to be considered to be an instructor if they've had 150 dives and 120 of them are in the same quarry doing the same thing every day?
By agency standards, they are ready.
I'm asking what your opinion is.
Well, so the nice thing about, being an instructor is you get to pick and choose your students. We are allowed to turn away people if we feel that they would be unsafe for the type of certification that they want to grab, which is awesome. I love that, the ability that we can do that.
Right.
So 150 dives is a drop in the water, honestly. I don't know where I am. I haven't been diving super, super long. It's over 1,000 for sure. But 150 dives is a drop in the water. So especially if most of them are in the same place, I wouldn't necessarily say that they are, ready to be an instructor. But, one could argue that if they just want to be a dive guide in the exact same place that they've been doing their diving, say they want to move to the Bahamas or something, then 120 dives in that exact place is probably going to make them a better candidate for that than someone who's been doing 500 dives in caves. That's not the place. You don't know the place that well. Maybe you should be, making that guy a dive guide or instructor.
Agreed. Good point. So along your path, have you taken solo yet?
I have not taken solo, and this is an interesting thing. I'm going to let you continue your questioning, your interrogation, and then I'll expound on that a little bit.
So I did take solo, and when I took solo, I was already a full cave diver. I wasn't an instructor yet, but I was full cave certified. A friend of mine, Mike, came to me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about taking a solo class, and I'm looking for a buddy." And it was like late November. And our instructor was this guy named Wayne. I had never taken a class from Wayne before. I didn't feel I needed a solo cert or solo training, so to speak, because I personally think a full cave diver, I think you and I have talked about this before, properly trained full cave diver, one of the best divers on the planet, even above and beyond solo. Absolutely. But that quarry up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, would not let you dive alone, even at full cave level, unless you had the specific solo cert. And with that solo cert, you can rent that transponder for like $180 to go on a solo dive. So if something happened to you and you didn't surface, they can come and find you easier. So let me, I don't. Go ahead.
Let me preface my response by saying that I'm not a solo instructor. So I'm not entirely clear on all the requirements to be a solo instructor. My understanding is that you need to have an independent tank and regulator, which could just be a pony bottle. So in my mind, I'm thinking, correct, what does a 19 cubic foot pony bottle attached to your aluminum 80 get you that me wearing side mount 85s with, tons of training on how to react in these situations doesn't? And the reason I wanted to say that I'll come back to talking about solo is I'm not a solo diver, obviously. Like I said, I'm not an instructor for it either. But you
have dove solo.
Yeah, of course.
Right? You have dove solo.
I dive Dene solo. It's one of the few places that full cave divers are allowed to dive on their own. None of the state parks allow it in Florida, so it's got to be a commercial site. And a lot of those places just don't want to take the risk. It's funny, actually. Cavern and intro divers are not allowed to solo dive even in the ballroom, but full cave divers can solo dive in the cave. So the rules are wonky all over the place. But I was at Blue Grotto, and they have a cave there behind the spring. And you can become a cave guide with them. Normally, you have to be a cave instructor to get a key to do that. And I just wound up randomly asking one day if I became a cave instructor and I got a cave guide key, could I just show up and dive the cave on my own if I wanted to? And he said, "Well, do you have a solo cert?" I said, "No, I don't have a solo cert." "Well, that's the rule, man. For insurance reasons, you have to have a solo cert to solo dive the cave here." This is mind blown. You can be a guide, you can be a cave instructor, but if you're not a recreational certified solo diver, you cannot solo dive the cave there.
That's nuts, because one of the things that I push in my cave classes is I want my students to be solo divers. Even if they have somebody with them, they should be able to self-rescue, self-recover, do everything on their own. As long as you don't violate theirs, especially with side mount or independent back-mounted doubles, you should never have an issue, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if you're diving with a friend at that same full cave level, then you're solo diving together.
Correct.
You know? You're just like you and I's friendship. We're single together. That's all it is. It's not real.
I thought we were togetherly single.
Guess this wasn't the best place to break it to
you. I hope Shelby doesn't hear this.
Oh man,
I'm definitely not single.
So, continue. Sorry.
So
didn't mean to interrupt you.
So if you've never been solo certified, would you have an interest to get solo certified just to be a guide at Blue Grotto?
Man, well, if I was actually guiding someone, I don't have to be solo. Although one could argue that as an instructor, you are already solo diving, regardless of what kind of instruction you're doing. I mean, do you disagree? I see your face, and I think you have a thought on this.
I would argue differently. I would argue very differently.
Would you?
Yeah.
So let's start at the recreational level then, okay? As a recreational scuba instructor, I believe in my heart of hearts, and I've got a heart, believe it or not, that I am solo diving with students. I do not believe that I can rely on a brand new open water, and I mean uncertified, day one student in confined water. I'm solo diving for sure in my mind, because if I go over to a student, I tell them I'm out of air, they're more likely to panic that their instructor's out of air than they are to react and give you a regulator. Just my opinion. So at the recreational level, for sure.
I would like to clarify in that I think that solo diving would even be somewhat safer than diving with a student or two. When you're solo, you only have to worry about yourself. You know, as an instructor, if you have a student or two at any level, you have someone or people with you that you're bringing above and beyond their comfort level and previous training. Obviously, that's how instructorships work. And if something goes wrong, if you're not a good instructor, stuff can go south really quick. So as opposed to being by yourself, if you have an issue, okay, I'll fix it. I'll turn the dive and leave, you know?
Sure. But in relation to just you, not the students themselves, what I'm saying is that you are a solo diver at that point, because you can't necessarily rely on your buddy to rescue you in that particular scenario, specifically because of what you just said. You are taking them above their training. So in a full cave scenario, I don't know that if I've taken, and I'm not a full cave instructor, let me just clarify that. I don't know that if I've taken some intro divers, let's just even say to the White Room, which is very basic navigation at Ginny Springs, if an issue happens, that I would know for sure that they could get us out of there. So in my opinion, I'm solo diving while monitoring a buddy team. Or a single diver, if that happens to be one diver, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, my only point was that as solo, you only have to self-rescue yourself. If you're an instructor and you have other people, you have to be able to rescue yourself. Anything that goes wrong with you and them also. So,
I'd like to know: is there a double solo certification? Because I'm a side mount diver, and I will happily attach a 19 cubic foot pony bottle on each of my side mount tanks with independent regulators. If you think that'll make me a safer diver, you're the professional.
I do not. No, I don't think that'll make. But no? I love answering people when they go on. Hey, I'm thinking about getting a pony bottle. Should I get a 13 or a 19 or a 30 or a 40 or a? And I look, my pony bottle's another LP85 on the other side. You know.
Yeah, dive
exactly.
Side mount. I mean,
without a doubt. If you got to buy a bottle, buy a bigger bottle. Buy the biggest one you can get and be balanced. So.
No such thing as too much gas.
That's true, especially in the overhead, because no matter how much it is, it's finite. You cannot create more. You can't get more. You can't, whatever you bring with you has to get you in and out safely. So.
Well, you could create more. Just eat at the Ginny Deli.
Wrong kind of gas.
Oh, roger that. Let's try and mix. Got it. My bad. Sorry about that.
So when did you get your cave certification?
Oh boy, you didn't know about this. Jesus, I've only been. I got it in January of 2021.
Have you gotten it yet?
Well, I printed it this morning, so yeah.
So the ink is dry.
Yeah, dryish. Yeah, most people don't know that I have only been a cave diver since January of 2021, so not very long.
Well,
Which, I'm not embarrassed to say or anything.
everybody
It's
starts
just
somewhere, right? And
absolutely, and I started
how
there.
many cave dives do you have post full training?
Ah, boy, I'd have to look through my CCR controller to be sure, but it's probably like 120, 130, something like
Okay.
that.
Does it,
I was diving a lot when I first finished my certification, and there's some we have to get into what we define as cave, but there's some caves near me, so I count them.
okay, clarify.
Come on, and I know that there's this huge, community-wide debate about what makes a cave, what makes a cavern. For example, not getting into too much detail about what's happened recently, but Buford,
Okay.
in my opinion, under many conditions, Buford is a cave. Right now, at this very moment, Buford is a cave. Because at the time of this recording, the visibility in Buford from 0 to 75 feet is inches. Therefore, you don't have the minimum required visibility for a cavern, which is 20 feet, and therefore it's a cave. Below a certain depth in Buford, you can't see sunlight regardless because you're in the overhead. It's a cave at that point. Again, this is my understanding of agency standards in my opinion, so I may not be correct, and you and I may disagree on that, but that's where I stand with it. There is a place. Go ahead. I see you have a thought about Buford.
I've never been. I've never been to Buford. Never even drove to the place. But starting viz of 20 feet for a cavern, maybe for a class.
Yes.
And as a cavern diver, you would need, and depending on the agency, some agencies are 40 feet. PSAI is 40 feet.
Sure. Okay. So
obviously agency dependent. As a full cave diver, there is no minimum visibility issues, right? So
Yep.
Why does that then become a cave as a full cave diver?
What I'm saying is, if you are in a place that has water that is so dark for various reasons that you cannot see light from the surface, and it's not a temporary thing that's caused by silting, for example, you're in a
you're talking daylight only, not actual visibility, just being able to see the daylight.
Right, and the reason you can't see the daylight is because
the visibility.
Of the river water that's
gotcha.
pushed in. So, have you been to Paradise, for example? Paradise Springs? Okay, I'm trying to think if there's a comparable one. I mean, Paradise is basically like the little brother to Buford. Buford's huge. It drops down to 20-ish feet in the basin there, and that's, in my opinion, the only non-overhead portion of Buford. And then you drop to around 70 feet, and you're basically completely overhead there. But around somewhere between 100 and 130 feet, you are overhead, and you cannot see the exit from any portion of that depth. And at that point, again, in my opinion, you're
and that's even when the river water is not intruding?
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, this is the opening as a circle, and it goes straight down just for a little bit, and then kind of goes at an angle all the way down. And eventually you get to a point where it flattens out at the bottom, and you can push back further in, but you have a flat ceiling. So you have to head back the other way to get to the slope where you would then be able to see light.
Gotcha. So, I apologize. I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about visibility only.
Okay.
Obviously, as soon as you lose daylight, even if you're 10 feet deep, you're in a cave.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Exactly.
According to standards.
So visibility that doesn't occur from, you silting out, for example. Obviously, you're still in a cavern if you can't see because you silted it. But when it rains really heavily there, the water flows back into Buford, and the water is coffee colored. So you literally have inches of visibility, even with your primary cave lights. And we run reels to get down to where the water clears up, which is around 75 feet, and it's crystal clear at that point. We've got to run a reel to get there.
It's ginny clear. It's like gin clear. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great. It's very, very clear water. As long as you don't silt it out, that is.
I don't know. I might have to do that.
It's fun. It's it's a little bit like Little River, where it's not as regulated. It's in the same wildlife management area as Eagle's Nest. So
gotcha.
Obviously, it's not anywhere near the size of Eagle's Nest because it's mostly just a sink, but it hits about 160 feet. So it's a very, very popular site for trimix training. But unfortunately, I see free divers and I see open water training happening there all the time. And it's just a really unfortunate place to be doing stuff like that. But like I said, in certain conditions, it's a cave.
So what's normal
argue
visibility
that
when
with
there's
anyone.
no river intrusion in the basin?
70, 100 feet easily.
Okay, so it
I mean, you can basically see as far as your light will let you see.
and that's not conducive in a good area for open water training in the basin?
I don't think so. I mean, for the 20 feet maybe, but the last time I was there, they were doing CISA, for example, and they were in the overhead, and they had this what do you call those? They had a descent line on a boat buoy, and the guys were down there around that 50-foot mark, which at that point you're for sure in overhead, and they had their hand on the buoy as they were swimming up doing their controlled emergency swimming ascent. So, in instances
But
like
then
that,
they're not doing a CISA, then they're doing a CISA, right? They're going on an angle.
yeah, they're going in an angle. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you see some strange stuff.
I would agree that that's not something that I would think would be.
I think we'd have to go one time and have you check it out so that you can kind of gauge for yourself. The opening to Buford's really not that big, and a lot of the spots, even in the shallower portions, have rock like overhead ledges. If that makes sense, it's not like a super obvious circle. Rocks jut out, and even at 20 feet, you can be overhead if you're in the right part of it. So. And then even where the ground is there at 20 feet is super silty. I don't think that there are rules against open water teaching when there's silt on the ground, but it's not somewhere that I would take students for sure, because obviously, you need to be teaching neutral, but students.
Do they have platforms?
No, it's not a training site. Like I said, it's like Little River in the sense that it's the Wild West. It's in a wildlife management area. You pay your $3. There's no rangers checking your cards. Which is why it's such a popular site for basic and advanced open water divers to go and push beyond their training limits. I'm not afraid to say, because it happens all the time, because no one's there to stop them. Yeah. No, they do it. I did it myself. I have nothing to say about it. I mean, it's not right, but I did it myself when I was in AOW, cruising around 130 feet in the overhead.
But you finally realized.
I was stupid, man, but that was years ago. Yeah. You know what? It took me, because just like everybody, not everybody, but just like most people today, hearing it from somebody else didn't change my mind on it. It wasn't until I actually took overhead training and went into actual overheads and, learned about the things that can go wrong and how to deal with them, that I was like, wow, I did a lot of stuff that I probably shouldn't have done. And I'm really lucky that nothing went wrong. And I did actually end up having an issue in Buford. But I was trained at that time, so it was okay. If you want, I can talk about
what
that.
happened?
It's up to you. So I was diving a side mount harness. I won't say which one, but I had an issue. I was sitting around maybe 100-ish feet, and I was in a wetsuit, and I had steel tanks on. So we can talk about why that's already not a good idea in a minute if you want to. But yeah, I was wearing a 3 mil wetsuit, I want to say. Maybe it was 5 mil. And I had my LP85s on. And I went to dump my wing on my ascent, and I don't know if there was dirt in it or it was just cocked a little bit weird, but the spring didn't push close my dump. So I actually ended up dumping my entire BCD and sinking another 20 or 30 feet and sitting on the bottom there at Buford. Fortunately, I had tons of gas because I was in side mount, but I ended up having to yank on it a couple of times, hoping that it would sort of close on me. So I'd yank on it, and then I would inflate, and if I could hear it coming out behind me, obviously it didn't work. It took me, I want to say 4 or 5 times before I finally felt my wing start to inflate, and I was able to, get out of there. Once I got out of there, I was like, it's fine. I would have climbed the walls. I'm a rock climber, but, yeah, I see that look. But it was a scary situation, and I honestly believe that had I been, an advanced open water diver that just happened to be side mount trained, I would have freaked out.
And that's why training is super important, right? Without that training, without that foresight from an instructor to be there so that nothing actually goes wrong, but to put you in those, dare I say, oh crap moments, and see how you respond and say, oh, well, that kind of worked okay, but this might work better. Without that, a lot of people think that, what could possibly go wrong? I'll be fine. But then when stuff goes wrong, they're not fine.
And in this case, just pulling on my dump, trying to fix it isn't necessarily something that you would learn in training, but it's important to get the training because it helps you develop that mindset on how to problem solve. So, that's something I want people to understand. Yeah, you definitely would have thought I just need to fix my BCD and go up.
But how do you fix the BCD?
But knowing that I have a lot of gas and I have a lot of time, that's something that they stress. And this because I know you teach this, that is stressed during overhead training, is that whatever the issue is, understand that as long as you have gas, you have time. Calm down, think, breathe, act, right? So, anyways, that's what I sound cool by saying that.
You always sound cool, in my opinion, Josh.
Thank you. Are you judging me for wearing steel tanks in a wetsuit?
No, I have students that come and do it all the time.
Yeah, I did my cave class in a wetsuit, but it's not something I would do now. Not with a single
I was just going to say,
anyway.
so when you did a wetsuit, did you have a single bladder or a dual?
Yeah, I had a single.
Did you have a redundant source of any kind of lift?
Yeah, I had these guns, bro. What are you talking about? Listen, for my cave class, I had a 25-pound lift bladder, and I remember it being maxed out.
25 is not a lot.
It was
not
maxed
doubles.
out. Yeah, dude, it was. You know how I knew if I had enough gas to hold me up? If I heard the OPV fire, that's how I knew I had enough gas. If I didn't hear
that's
that,
how you judge when you were
burble,
neutral, right? I can be neutral as long as I am maxing out and exhausting gas in the back.
That was the way to go. That's what I ended up doing. Not saying it was right. And, hey, credit to my instructor. He told me that this is not a good idea, so it's not like it was just ignored or whatever. But, I had a decision, and that's what I had at the time, and I wanted to get it done. So I pushed on. Of course, there was a, what do you call it? Like an assistant instructor in the cave who was transferring. And then there was my buddy. So there was plenty of people in there to get me out if we'd had an issue. And this was an intro, so we weren't going very far anyway. I was a mouth breather at the time, or a heavy breather, I should say, because
I know a lot of agencies have standards that say you have to have some type of redundant source of lift. So when I have students that show up in a wetsuit, I make them bring a lift bag or a safety sausage.
Bag. Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. Neither one is actually going to serve you well in a cave for redundant lift. But in open water, maybe.
You couldn't just tie the lift bag to your back and inflate it and let it go?
How are you going to manage that going up and down?
Just stickler for basic.
But I will typically teach students a lesson that bring an SMB or a DSMB. And last dive, I said, look, you really need to understand what it's like, or what it's going to be like to deploy this in real world scenario in an overhead environment. And they don't get it until we're in the overhead. And then I tell them, hey, your thing broke. So I make them deploy that, and they sit on the floor for probably 3 minutes while they get it out and, unroll it and put a little bit of gas in it and try to split that down the middle or put it across their belly. And if you're way back in an overhead, there's going to be enough silt that you're going to just blow up the viz. So definitely not a good idea.
Yeah. And then there's something panicky is not the word, but there's something stressful about thinking about being 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 feet back into a cave and knowing you're making your exit on a pink safety sausage with a dolphin at the top. Sorry, Woody.
Wait, really?
I think his actually has an octopus at the top.
I've seen them with creatures on them. I've actually seen an instructor friend of mine actually, just as a goof, used an actual blow up doll once. Actually glued an OPV on her.
Oh man, that's okay. Just do a little cuddle to it to make your way out. That's fine. That's probably even better than DSMB. Really, I would go for that. So on the topic of steel tanks and redundant bladders and such, what's a better choice for someone that wants to get into overhead? Should they go dry, or is it better to go redundant bladder and stick with the wetsuit? And I'm just curious your opinion on this.
That's a good question.
Dry.
And I dive dry also. I dive dry exclusively unless I'm on like a tropical vacation, like we're going to Bonaire in August, So there I'll just wear shorts and a skin. But for fire coral, I'll have skin on my legs also. But here in the overhead, or even in the Gulf of Mexico, I guess in the Gulf I have dove just a couple weeks ago. I went and I dove a 3 mil wetsuit, but suit with pockets and more towards technical diving. And in the open water, if I had a need for a redundant source of lift, I could actually just pull out my SMB and be out of trim as I do my ascent. But swimming like this in a cave is not going to be conducive to keeping the viz nice and clear, right?
Visibility.
So, but for me, I would much rather have a dry suit over a dual bladder. Provided the dry suit manufacturer is okay with their suit or accepts that their suit is sufficient enough for redundant lift. And I don't know any offhand personally that aren't. They usually give you a fair bit of lift, but
I mean, that's a lot of airspace.
Well, and now let's talk about that. So what happens if you're diving your dry suit as redundant lift, and all of a sudden that bigger bubble, you lose control of that bubble and it ends up in your feet. And now you're doing an uncontrolled feet first descent. So there are definitely.
Well, I'd be thankful I'm in the overhead. So it's not a much of a.
At least you can't have a direct descent to the surface uncontrolled, right? You just get stopped at the ceiling. But there are caves that have big enough rooms where even going from the floor up to the ceiling of that room could be a DCS issue, or a DCI issue.
Oh yeah,
without a doubt,
for sure.
So
so you figure your feet up and the flow's pushing you out, and you're just struggling to do your little underwater somersault to get your feet back below you. Now I get it. That's something I try to avoid, but it happens to me. Let's see. It happens to me kind of often. Not so much that I have too much air in my ankles or whatever from using my dry suit as a backup inflator, but sometimes, like I've got these straps around my ankles that tighten down on my boots to keep air out of them. And if I happen to look down for whatever reason, or I reach down to grab something, my ankles will go up just a little bit, and then my ankles fill with air. I'm like, I hate this. It doesn't make me have an uncontrolled descent because it's usually. Go ahead.
Are you referring to gaiters or those Y-shaped fin keepers?
Neither. They're attached to my actual boots. Like they came on my dry suit. It's literally just a Velcro strap.
Okay.
That is attached to the boot. Yeah, and it just tightens it down. Yeah, so sometimes some of the air will get in there. It's not enough to give me an uncontrolled descent, but it is enough to piss me off because then my boots get super loose and I can feel my feet moving around in there. I just hate it. It's the worst.
And how do you deal with that in the overhead?
Yeah.
What do you do?
I drop my knees a little bit and bring my chest up so that the air circulates back up to my chest area, open up my dump and just dump out whatever's in there and kind of go back to where I was before, which is just enough air for that to squeeze to not make me want to die and be comfortable. So that's about it. So it's usually when I get greedy.
You'll get a little bit head up and then kind of extend your legs and wiggle so the gas burps up.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Cool.
Sometimes at the cost of, not being pretty in the visibility, depending on where I'm at. But, it's better than that. Better that than losing control, of course.
Absolutely. And if you don't do something that looks so...
See, because I'm not perfect. And that's...
Well, I think everybody listening would agree that if they know you. I mean, I'll agree to it.
No, I don't. No, this is literally breaking news right now to anybody listening. I am not a perfect diver. Now, I am a perfect man, a perfect husband, perfect computer programmer. I'm just not a perfect diver. It is what it is. Why are you yawning? That was the perfect yawn, and I taught you that. You're welcome.
I'm just looking away as the river of bullshit goes past. Pardon the language, but it was.
Yeah, it's fine.
So all right. So you're okay with dry suit and single bladder side mount harness. Cool.
Yeah. I've never had a dual bladder, but I assume that I would always rather have a dry suit.
For where you're diving.
Yeah, in general, if I have to have some type of redundant buoyancy, I've never had a dual bladder. So my assumption, and I say it's an assumption because I haven't tried a dual bladder, is that I would always pick a dry suit over a redundant bladder. This is my personal opinion, and based on my experience.
What if you were? So you're not a big fan of the salt, but what if you were diving in the ocean and the water was 85 degrees?
I have done that actually in my dry suit. I don't think it was 85 degrees at the time, but it was a little bit warm. I just didn't wear my undergarments. I just wore my I have like a rash guard, like one of the dive shop ones with the printed logo on it and some shorts under it. It wasn't the most comfortable thing in the world, but I think I told you before, I don't even own a wetsuit. So which, it was that or just dive in my regular gear, which I didn't want to do because with my side mount harness, I would have had to have resized it to make it happen.
So since we're currently on the topic of dry suits, or partially thereof anyway, tri-lam or neoprene?
Yeah, I have a tri-lam dry suit. I can see the benefit of having a neoprene one, and maybe help me understand. I'm thinking that a neoprene dry suit could flood and keep you somewhat warm in the way that a neoprene wetsuit would. But I don't know if that's the case. But my dry suit is a tri-lam a dry suit with some Kevlar on the outside to protect me and the suit from scraping against.
Okay, so for anyone that's listening that's not familiar with the different types of dry suits, a tri-laminate suit is basically, for all intents and purposes, pretty much like diving, a big hefty bag with a zipper and seals that keep the water from going in your wrists and your neck, right? A neoprene suit is literally just like a dry suit, whether it's crushed or compressed, it doesn't matter, but it's still a neoprene suit, has the same seals on your neck and your wrist. That could be consisting of latex, silicone, or neoprene also, but all that keeps the water out, and you wear much less thermal protection underneath because you're getting thermal protection just by wearing the suit from the neoprene.
So was I right that if the dry suit floods, you still have some thermal
protection
you would. From the neoprene?
Yeah, you definitely would. And even if it's a tri-lam suit, Josh, if it floods, the colder water will get into the suit, but just the same as a wetsuit. Like if the water transfer is so high, your body never gets to warm the water and help sustain temperature. If the water is just coming in and going out the backside all the time, constantly, that's how you get cold. Right. So
but if we're talking a broken neck seal or something, it
would. And some people are like, I don't want that to happen. I would end up drowning because the water going in would pull me to the floor. No, it wouldn't. Just to clarify that myth, because the water inside the suit, guess what? Weighs as much as the water outside the suit. So, but I will say, I've actually flooded my suit up to my belly button when I was diving a tri-lam suit. Very first time I had a suit flood, I knew I wasn't going to get pulled to the bottom or lose buoyancy control, but it was still a very awkward feeling. Just because trying to swim with water in the suit and finning and staying neutral and, depending on where the water's coming in and where the leak is, sometimes you can swim in a certain angle where you can maybe put some gas in the suit to help keep a little bit more of the water out. But that's more of like an advanced dry suit skill.
Advanced flooded dry suit class. So since we're talking about dry suits, latex or silicone and why? Let me tell you, I've only used latex, but again, I don't know any better. I've had a dry suit for about 16 months now. I've only ever had latex. I actually have a pair of silicone seals that will go on when my latex ones tear. But I have no experience with silicone, but I see it a lot. Silicone, excuse me. I see it a lot. Why? Why silicone over latex? Or why latex over silicone?
You there? Okay, I just lost my screen for a second. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, so latex versus silicone versus neoprene. So there are neoprene suits that have neoprene wrist seals and neck seals. I have this big, huge, empty space on my shoulders called a cranium with nothing inside. So the neoprene neck seals that I've had, I stretch really fast. And then you have to trim them and glue them back together to make them tight, because if they're just too big, they're not going to hold the water out. So they are definitely the most comfortable, in my opinion. But they're not very conducive, like I said, for the reason I just said. But the wrist seals, neck seals, and that are made of the silicone and latex, it's a tough call. It is. Latex, there's different types and styles. There's bottleneck, there's V-shape, there's different thicknesses. My problem with latex is that it is very susceptible to breakdown from ultraviolet sitting in the sun. It's also very susceptible to any type of petroleum. So if you're on a boat and anything gets on the latex, it just turns it into this nasty, yucky, gummy, sticky, disgusting seal left on your suit. I personally like the silicone better because, in my opinion, it's more durable or more long lasting.
Okay.
But the one benefit that latex has over silicone, if you get a little tiny nick in a silicone seal and you stretch, that's exactly where the seal's just going to go and totally just tear all the way to the end. So, as with anything in a dry suit, you want to be careful with your stuff. You know, you take care of your gear will take care of you. So, absolutely. I will say, and I'm pretty sure you'll probably agree with me, if it comes to glued on or user replaceable, I am a big believer in user replaceable.
Yep. I have it's not the greatest. I have the quick cuff system on mine, which is, I'm going to get it changed, but it's a giant plastic circle. It's like literally this big. And so the seals are like electrical taped on the inside of the ring, and they're easy to replace, but it actually gets in the way when I was trying to get behind my choptima to get to my dry suit inflator or my wing at the time. It would get stuck on the plastic. So that's kind of annoying. But again, at the time I just didn't know any better. Now I know that there's soft seal replacements, and that's what
I have the flexible ones on mine also.
Sure.
My very first dry suit was an OS Systems search and recovery rescue suit, black and bright orange with reflective tape, because I was born, a Northeast wreck diver, and visibility was not great. So I went with what was very common for up there, and it had the SciTech, dry glove rings on them, and you try to go to grab a lobster or do anything, and it just gets in the way. So I don't dive those anymore at all unless I'm up in the Northeast.
So I'm currently diving a Scuba Force Expedition SE. I love the suit. I have an NST on order now. I can't wait to get it. Just a basic one. It's not going to have any of the replaceable stuff. But I love the suit. The only changes I need to make are get rid of the replaceable seal system that's a hard plastic, replace it with something that's a little more flexible, and I want to get rid of my boots. I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen, a lot of the guys in Cape Country that wear Converse with their dry suit, and then they're in their fins. And I gotta say, I used to think they did that to look cool, and they probably do. Come on, but but I can see the benefit of not having the boots. And the boots that are on my suit are slimline, which means that they're the same as the same size that I would wear if I was wearing just regular wetsuit booties. So I didn't have to change fins, which was definitely a benefit. But when it comes to the maintenance of the suit, and again, this is just me, I really like to turn my entire suit inside out and scrub, and I can't do that with the boots because they won't pull through. So I've even had a couple of times now, which is frustrating. I show up to a dive site and I stick my feet into my suit, and there's a little bit of water in my boots that didn't come out because I got trapped in a crease or something, and now I've started the dive and my socks are already wet. Very frustrating. So I'm going to get this switched to actual socks once I get my other suit in, and I can.
I agree with the socks for a totally different reason. I'm not that big on pulling my suit completely inside out that I've got to turn all the way down to the toe. But my first dry suit, that OS System suit, had boots on it, and just walking around in your dry suit, which a lot of us do, surface intervals, and you get to the dive site and you got to go to the car, and it wears on the soles. And I'd rather wear on a sole of something that I could just go to the store and buy another pair rather than having to send my suit in for, a 2 or 3 or 4 or more week repair.
That's a really good point, actually. Yeah. And I know a lot of these suits are coming with the hard rock boots, but the one that I got, the slimline boot, it's specifically meant to be small. So it's really no better than the bottom of a regular wetsuit bootie. So I honestly hadn't thought about that, but it's an excellent point. I'm sure, especially walk around Dene and stuff where there's little limestone pieces all over the place, I'd be tearing through my boots in no time at all.
Especially Dene where there's people drinking in bottles and broken glass maybe on the floor. Yeah. So I've never got into the Converse concept.
Yeah, that'd be a great way to get a
pair.
Well, you're not cool. We talked about this. You already saw this. You're not cool, so I'm not.
I'm doing my best. If you could just keep me posted, let me know when I get there. That'd be great.
Well, you need to buy a pair of Converse. That's like
I can go buy 4 pair, and then I'll be like super cool. No.
That's like pandering. I'm not really sure how to explain it, but it's like trying too hard, you know. So 4 pairs is not cool. One pair is.
But as
cool.
a tech diver, 1 is none and 2 is 1. So I should have at least 2 pair.
Are you taking a second pair of Converse with you
Not
on your dive?
no, but yeah.
You could. You lose your fins, you lose your Converse.
I've never tried the Converse. What I usually do is I'll wear I actually dive in SF Tech right now, and it has socks on it, and I will just go up a size or 2 in wetsuit boots and just wear those. They don't require tying and lacing. And
okay, so you're putting regular wetsuit boots.
So I normally wear an 11 or 12, depending on the sneaker and the manufacturer, cool. But I wear a 13 wetsuit boot over my SF Tech socks. So, and it's super comfortable.
Have you tried with regular shoes?
I've tried the rock boots. I've tried, the manufacturer, the dry suit rock, and I didn't like them. It kind of felt weird how the extra material in the toe of the suit got stuck in the boot or sat in the boot with my foot, and feeling the wrinkles and everything, I just didn't like it. But I found a pair of Akono wetsuit boots that are super comfortable. So.
Do you find that using wetsuit boots keeps your feet warmer because the water that's in there is being warmed by your feet, or no experience with socks?
No,
so I'm just
no temperature difference whatsoever.
Do you still wear thermal socks inside your wetsuit, or inside your dry suit? If you have dry suit socks on, you do.
And I just nothing special.
Interesting.
If I'm going super cold, then I'll wear Fourth Element Arctic socks, which are toasty and really, really warm. But normally I'll just wear, Walmart winter thermal socks, just that they're a little bit thicker than cotton socks and,
Gotcha. Yeah. Speaking of warm, Florida is it's an emotional and temperature roller coaster when you're wearing a dry suit. You show up, you're hot, you get in your dry suit, and you're pretty sure your dry suit's leaking, but it's really that you're sweating
one of the
through
biggest
your undergarments.
dangers in North Florida or even South Florida dry suit diving in the summertime is heat stroke and heat exhaustion, and staying hydrated is super important.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to put your dry suit on and get in the water and then get out and go put your gear on.
That is something that I've seen a lot of instructors do, and hopefully those instructors are telling their students also. But yeah, when I did my cavern class, Dan said the same thing. He's, look, put your suit on, go dip in the water, float for 5 minutes, then come back and put your tanks on, because I was strictly double back mounted at the time. So.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about, sort of not career paths per se, but certification paths. We talked about side mount, talked about what constitutes a cave, sort of. I'm sure we'll do a much deeper dive in what a cave is, what a cavern is. And we talked about some dry suit stuff.
I've got one more question for you.
Got about 2 more minutes left.
It's along the lines of course track that we've been discussing. How do you feel about people getting full cave certified without having advanced nitrox and deco procedures?
Okay. So that's an agency thing, obviously, because I wasn't I'm TDI trained for full cave. Okay. And I believe it's a requirement. You're making me guess myself here. I'm not a cave instructor once again. So, but I believe it's a requirement to be ANDP to be full cave through TDI. But I have recently heard that some agencies actually allow decompression during intro to cave, up to 10 minutes of deco. So, do I think that that's a good idea, not to have to do ANDP before full cave? I don't know, man. To be honest with you, most of the cave dives that I do, because I'm not a very experienced cave divers, don't have decompression obligations. Even in Jenny. Jenny's, 70, 80, 90 feet where I typically go, but by the time I'm on the way out, I don't have any deco to do anyway. So I end up just carrying an oxygen bottle.
So most of your dives in Jenny are deco free?
Yeah. I mean, I'm on a rebreather. Let me clarify that. So I've got a high set point, 1.2, 1.4 for most of the working part of my dive. But yeah, I mean, I come out with deco sometimes, but more often than not, I don't have deco, or I have under 5 minutes of deco, which is within standards of the intro level for.
What is,
Maui,
out of
for
curiosity,
example,
what is
which
your
10 minutes
longest
of
cave
deco.
dive so far?
Well, if you and I would agree on the Buford thing, which I think we already established that we do, that if you can't see the sun because of non-man-made reasons, then it's a cave. Then it would be 3 hours. I did a 3-hour dive there in Buford. Actually, I started the dive at 6, and we didn't get out till almost 10. So realistically, yeah, I mean, that was at night anyway. It was a cave regardless. But yeah, so 3 hours, and I had 35 minutes of decompression to do on that one. And it was a nightmare, and I never want to do it again.
Why?
I hate deco. I hate it with a pat because I can't sit there. I can't do it.
So there's people talking on Facebook all the time about, hey, what are you guys doing for deco? How are you killing time? How are you passing time? And people bring phones and tablets and leave it at the 20-foot stop, and we'll watch and listen or whatever. Uh-oh.
I have a confession to make. So in our last, we'll wrap up with this.
Tell us the truth, Josh. We'll love you anyway.
Okay. So that particular dive, all right. We went to Buford, and we were getting some time on the rebreathers. It's good practice or whatever. And I brought my little dive vault case. I had my phone in it, and I had some episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine downloaded. And I brought a travel version of Connect 4. I don't know if you ever heard of Connect 4. It's a little board game. I had a travel version in my dry suit pocket. So me and my dive buddy were playing Connect 4 at 100 feet deep. I won. I'm just saying, pretty sure I'm the first person in history to win a game of Connect 4 at 100 feet underwater. I haven't seen any evidence.
It's true until someone disputes
you.
Sure
That's true. But well, so we were watching some TV down there. Again, this was just working on buoyancy skills and making sure that we were going to be just really squared away and safe when we went to do some CCR cave dives together. Well, during our ascent, like I said, with the visibility like that, I had to have my reel to get down there. During my ascent, I should have said we had to stop at 30-ish feet, and I went to pull the phone off of my Choptima because it was clipped into the little plastic D-ring right here, and set it on the ledge so I could continue watching my episode, but I fumbled it, and I dropped it. And given that there was, inches from 0 to 70-ish feet, and we were at 30 feet, I had no idea whether my phone was in the very clear water at 75 or was my phone somewhere on the ground between 30 and 70 where I would have to be like face to face with my phone to be able to see it. I alerted my buddy and we went searching for it, but we did not find it, man. We spent maybe 10, 15 minutes looking for it and never found the thing. Fortunately, him. He's a great guy. He went back the next day with a team of divers. Literally, him and 2 or 3 other guys went there to go find my phone, and they did find it. And I'm sad to report that after 18 hours at around 70 feet in water, even a dive vault case will not it will not keep your phone dry. So yeah, unfortunately, it flooded. I was very sad about it. I took it to every phone shop that I could find, and nobody was able to recover any of the data. And that sucks because I had photos of us playing Connect 4 at 100 feet, which is really what I was most excited about. I didn't care about the text. I just wanted the photos of us playing Connect 4. Like, I needed my evidence. So
I was just going to say that I sent it to
Guinness Book of World Records because I have no proof, So no evidence. So just got to take my word for it, I guess. But yeah, that was my longest dive and also my most tragic dive. There was we suffered a major loss there. In that,
so 35 minutes of deco is the most you've ever done.
And when I got it back, it was dead. Yeah. I hope I never do that much again. It was terrible. I hate it.
Another topic for conversation on another episode in the future is something that you mentioned, going and doing skills at 100 feet to practice buoyancy, as opposed to practicing buoyancy at 10 feet.
Sure. Yeah. Shallower water is harder to do, harder to work out that buoyancy. And of course, I say in this particular instance, just to clarify, when I say buoyancy and skills, with CCR, buoyancy is so much different than open circuit. I know but maybe a listener won't know. buoyancy on CCR is so much different that when you're even just doing some of the things that keep you task loaded on CCR, if your buoyancy isn't perfect, then you're going to find yourself drifting either up or down. And that's really the case whether you're at 10 feet or 100 feet. So in our case, it's, doing dill flushes. Am I going to sink or am I going to shoot to the ceiling? Really, we're just trying to get those skills down.
Gotcha.
So if we ever had the issue in real life, quote unquote real life,
cool,
we'd be prepared.
Anything else?
But no, I think that's it. We're right at our hour mark. I think this was a great episode. We talked a lot about really cool things, and I'm looking forward to putting this out and getting some feedback. I do want to say to our audience that Dene and I and Brandon are super, super grateful for you guys listening in. We're just a couple of guys talking about something that we like to do. Certainly didn't expect to have anybody even want to listen, but we're really, really grateful that you do. In the next couple of episodes, if you haven't already heard of it, we should be releasing our release schedule, which I think will be start of the week, usually maybe 8 a.m. on Monday. Don't hold me to it because I'm not sure at this exact time, but we're looking to do weekly releases for you guys. And there's going to be some giveaways and stuff coming up. So, if you're on YouTube and watching this, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll keep you updated on that. And if you're on any of the podcast platforms, Apple, Google, and Spotify,
yeah, man,
we'll see you guys.
This is a great episode. Good chatting with you, Josh. And don't forget, guys, if you're on Facebook or if you know how to reach us, feel free to reach out to us with any type of topic suggestions. We're always looking for things to talk about, even though we've got a list probably, a quarter mile long already. But if there's something special that you guys want to hear about, we're more than happy to talk about some stuff specifically for you guys and girls. Don't forget, Dive As If was nice seeing you.
Absolutely.
We're chatting with you, and we'll catch you next time on Into the Overhead.